Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network. The broadcast shows are for informational and entertainment purposes only. They are not designed to provide listeners with specific personal, medical, or counseling advice. Individuals with a medical issue should always consult their healthcare provider. MS&Me is not responsible for content of individual shows. The views expressed by show hosts or their guests are their own. Enjoy the show.
Hello and welcome to Chronically Well Club Radio. I'm your host, Rebecca Naylor, health coach, currently celebrating 20 years, going on 21, living with multiple sclerosis in remission. So I developed Chronically Well Club to help you, my listeners, discover your own power to heal, because there's so much you can do to recreate your life. This show is going to explore one or more of my keys to healing, which I talk about at the beginning of every episode. I really do believe that healing is very multifaceted, and it's all about lifestyle medicine, things that are completely within your control to create. So those different keys to healing are diet and nutrition, toxic load, emotions, your environment, movement and rest, community, cognition and creativity, communication, your gut health, and mindset and belief. So in a lot of my episodes, I do have interview guests, and I'm very happy to invite to the show today Frankie Cote, transformation coach. And we're going to be talking about a number of different things today, which are going to touch on emotions. They're going to touch on a lot about creativity, and definitely a lot about mindset and belief. So an introduction to Frankie. Frankie was born in Montreal here in Canada, spent most of his life in London, UK, and is now living here in Toronto, where we are based here. He has worn many hats as I'm getting to know him. He's currently working on a book and has a history of writing poetry. He's a very talented musician and has performed music to thousands. He's produced radio shows in prison, all sorts of different things he's done, led a very interesting life, and now really giving back to his community in a similar way to myself. So when I asked Frankie a few minutes ago, what is your mission? How would you define that? He said this, that his mission now is to help people not only realize, but live their infinite potential. So definitely an excellent person to be a transformational coach. I asked Frankie to be on the show today because Chronically Well Club is all about transforming your health. And I wanted to talk about the power that we do have as individuals to transform our lives in many different areas. So welcome to the show, Frankie.
Thank you so much. Can I just say, if I could have an introduction like that every single room that I walked into, or every single place that I was found in my life, that would be wonderful. Maybe I should hire you as my introductor.
You can just play this episode again and again.
That's it. I'm going to have it on repeats every morning. This is who you are.
I know. Well, I just met Frankie a few weeks ago, and it has been a real pleasure getting to know him and learning about all of the interesting things he's done with his life and his different really interesting perspectives on life and on the power we have to make decisions, to use our power and our responsibility to make choices. And all of these things, as a health coach, my brain funnels them into how can I apply this to health. So let's start with a little bit about creativity. So when I talk about creativity as one of the keys to healing, I'm not just talking about picking up a paintbrush and creating a work of art, although that could be one way that you create. But I often tell people I have the word create tattooed on my arm because I try and remember that every day I have the power to create my own life and to create my own body, my own health, my own relationships. So what role does creativity have in your life?
It's a very good question. I like your tattoo, by the way. It
Thank you.
looks great. Creativity is something that we're taught involves a paintbrush or musical notes or putting words in order. Creativity is something that we're told is reserved to genius people who create beautiful things. Like, creativity is something that we're basically told we don't have, which is the biggest lie that all of us have ever been told, because actually what we're largely not aware of is the fact that our very thoughts every single day create the life that we have around us, and the life that we have around us is a result of the creativity that we're applying through our subconscious mind on a daily basis. So really, what is creativity? Creativity is everything. What you exist in every single moment is a result of your personal creativity. That sounds really, really complicated.
But it's actually so simple.
It's super true as well.
You think it, you make a choice, you create it, right?
Absolutely.
we created this conversation. We created the outfits that we're wearing
Very
today. We created our haircuts.
Very true, very true. And the difficult thing with creativity is that it's easy to say that you're creative when you're living or existing in something that you enjoy. It's quite hard to also admit that you're creative when things are going wildly wrong.
Yes.
Because the creativity that we're speaking of is fired off with our thoughts, is fired off with the actions that are derived from our thoughts. So really the power that we have over our future, over our destiny, over everything really hinges on that creativity in itself. Some people are great at using that creativity and they paint a beautiful painting. Some people are great at using that creativity and they write the best song ever. But other people are great at using that creativity and they create the lives that they really desire, that they want.
Right.
Whatever that looks like.
But some people use that creativity to create debt.
Some people
And to create broken relationships.
Or in my case, when I was suffering in many ways with issues personally, I created a huge amount of excess weight around my belly and my neck. So I went from being a very healthy child to being around 320 pounds, which for my personal height and size was around 140, 150 pounds overweight. That was a creation that I manifested into my own life myself.
I think that's something people don't realize, is that they often think creating is a positive thing where you're adding to your life in somehow, but you're creating every moment of your life, whether you like it or not. So you just have to decide what you're creating, right? If I decide to have an unhealthy meal for a lunch, I'm still creating my body. Because whatever we put into our stomachs, our body's going to use that to create the cells of our body. So I'm creating me, whether I like it or not. I have to be aware of what I'm creating. So you, at some time, created a body that was 320 pounds.
Yes, I did. And it was over a long period of time, actually. And the funny thing is when we talk about creating and sort of relating to our atoms and our atomic structure, that's very important. But also, we create from something that is non-atomic, at least in my belief, which means that there is so much more that we're creating in our lives that we don't realize we're actually creating too. So it's a beautiful example when you say the food that you put in your body creates the atoms. It's brilliant, it's simple. But what of the other 90% of the mind that you don't know you're using, or that we don't know how it is used? What of that part? What of the reality what of the reality that we have around us is being manifested by our own belief system? Certainly for when I put on the weight, there were a few factors there. There was a lot of repressed issues surrounding my childhood, surrounding my sexuality, surrounding many different things. But the one thing that changed my life, and I write about this in my upcoming book, was the day when my dad took me aside and he said, "How did you get so fat?" And at that point, I was not fat. I was a little rounder.
Right.
I was still playing soccer and football. I was still kind of going and connecting and being sort of a vibrant young child. But that word stuck in my head to such an extent that now, even though I reversed my transformation and lost all the weight, it's still something that on a bad day, I look in the mirror and I say, I'm really fat.
Oh, I hear you. It's a story.
Bizarre.
It's a story. My dad was the same way. He used to tease me about my thunder thighs when I was 12 because I developed, I guess, womanly curves quite young. And he used to tease me about that. And even now, it's something that I'm aware of. It's a story.
It's a story that you tell about yourselves. And the beauty of creativity when it comes to our lives is that positioning it as a story is a really easy way to understand it. What you are telling yourself consciously and subconsciously through the mind chatter that goes through your brain constantly all the time. Like if you try and stop and just listen to what your mind chatter is saying, you'll realize that it doesn't stop talking. There is no point where it stops talking.
So tiresome.
It's tiresome and it's painful and it's irritating. But what that is doing is that is reinforcing the stories that you've started to tell about yourself. Hence, when you try and create transformation in your life, it's difficult. You feel like your body's fighting you. You feel like your brain is fighting you, but particularly your brain. Whenever I've had these transformations or whenever I've tried to put a new hat on my head and say, I want to do something different, my brain is actively fighting me.
Yeah, I'm reading a book right now called Playing Big. I'm not sure if you've read it. Tara Moore. So she talks about the difference between the inner critic and the inner mentor.
Right.
And about how like 90% of the time it's the inner critic that's nagging us and that negative self-talk. And we have to very consciously, actively ignore that critic and ask our mentor, because intuitively inside us, we know the answer. Like we know the
Always.
right path to take. We know what is going to help us. Like that mentor is there, but they're really shadowed by that critic.
Always, and we're born with 100% mentor. As a baby, we're pure and we're innocent, and the world and our wonderful parents and families and friends and people do not attempt to ruin that beautiful
Yeah.
intuitive thing per se. I mean, sometimes they might, and you're really unlucky. But
It builds up over time.
The reality is that the critic is born from your human experience, not from what exists before or after. But if you believe that,
Yes.
so listening to your critic really is just listening to a sort of constant echo chamber
Replay.
of things that no longer exist.
Yeah. And
which
in a
is-
health context, I often talk to my clients about this idea that, your issues are in your tissues, right?
Nice.
This is a phrase that really I
love
find
that.
sticks to some people, that our emotions are so important. The emotions that we carry from a very young age and that we continue to build upon on a daily basis, those emotions literally manifest themselves in the cells of our bodies. So with people like myself and a lot of our listeners who have multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases, I spend so much time focusing on emotions and your self-talk and your thinking and your subconscious, because really that's where it began. There
Yeah.
may have been environmental triggers, there may have been genetic predisposition. We still don't know what causes MS, but we know 100% that stress and your mindset and your belief and how you think about your condition has a huge effect on your prognosis.
Absolutely, and it's something that's been proven time and time again, and even in my coaching experience, one specific client comes to mind who had been suffering with Hashimoto's for many years. And it was interesting because it had somewhat become her identity. When I first met this client,
And just for our
she
listeners,
spoke,
that's a thyroid disease.
Yes, absolutely. Well, intervened, and she almost said, "Hello, my name is Hashimoto's." Like it was so ingrained in the story of herself that it was all that she really spoke about. Any success that she had in her life was underpinned by it. So it was like, I did really well, but, or this is going really badly, but it's okay because, and it was very interesting. And the coaching journey took us in very interesting directions. One relating to personal trauma that had been unresolved, and the other relating to the lacking in control she had over her own thoughts and over her own mind. And what was beautiful about the journey is it ended in a place where doctors thought some sort of miraculous recovery had occurred, where the Hashimoto's no longer existed in the strength that it did before. It was basically completely gone.
That's the power of the mind shift.
And it was almost entirely the power of the mind shift. And then there was a tiny bit of removing the emotional baggage that she was carrying around, as you say, in her tissues. It's a really nice way of looking at it. So that the power that we have to change our story, the power that we have to change what we have around us and what we're manifesting is infinite. We are all infinite beings and we all have the infinite opportunity to do this. That's why I'm so passionate about what I do. Because I realize that every single person can do absolutely anything with their lives.
And I love how you talked earlier about this idea of accepting no other outcome, about really making a decision. And it's funny, when people first ask me, how did you do it? How have you been in remission for 20 years? What I really want to say, because for me, honestly, I feel it's true, is that when I was 17 and somebody said, you have MS, my first reaction was, screw that.
Yeah.
No.
Or, no, I don't.
No, like I don't choose that for my life. And it was just, I did not even I didn't allow myself to imagine myself in a wheelchair. I didn't allow myself to imagine how it might negatively affect my life. And probably I had the benefit of being so young and idealistic that I assumed I had the power to
It's the idealistic that was the benefit. I think being young probably wasn't. But being young means that you probably had more of a chance of taking it on and it being enforced on you. I think it's the idealistic that played in your favor, which is an incredible thing.
Yeah, I just held that vision. I didn't allow myself to visualize the worst case scenario. I only allowed myself to visualize everything that I wanted pre-diagnosis.
Right.
And just never, and it's not about ignoring or denying. I mean, I couldn't host this radio show and deny that I have MS. I mean, it still exists. It is part of my story, but it's not part of my story that I let stop me from doing anything. And I don't visualize myself in any way being, I don't know, being held back by it. And I
Completely,
feel like the
completely.
fear of what could happen is what holds a lot of people back.
Absolutely.
Right?
And in many cases, in the case of my coaching client, the Hashimoto's was the story. In the case of a lot of people, it's at least a really big chapter or a middle portion or a beginning or an end. And in your case, it's a footnote. It's a tiny little footnote that really doesn't impact the story at all. It's just kind of a side. And it says, you know what? Oh, and also. And that's the beauty of having a mind that is honed in on that goal, honed in on exactly what it is that you want to do. Because all of us will contradict ourselves all the time. But the reality is that as infinite beings that have an infinite potential, everything that we want to achieve, everything that we dream of, is something that we've been put on this planet to do. We don't dream of things that we can't achieve. We don't dream of things. And when I say dream, I don't mean those random fever dreams you sometimes have, or you drank too much alcohol and you have this really
Desire,
bizarre
calling.
thing. But your dream, your passion, this thing that you think, if I woke up every day and did this, I would love it. But I'm in this job that I hate, but it's safe. Like that thing that you're pushing towards intuitively, that thing exists because you can achieve it. It doesn't exist because you can't. It exists because you can. And actually, you've been put on this planet to do that, to help for the betterment of everyone around you.
To help, let me latch onto that word, because for me, helping is a key part of my recovery. I don't want to say recovery because it implies that there was a negative to begin. But my health maintenance, I suppose, is that when we help other people, when we do whatever our calling is, we did a show a couple of weeks ago with the guys from TenFed all about choosing work that works and really living your passion and how that can be so transformative for your health. And especially when you're doing something with your life that allows you to help other people in your community and contribute and give your gifts to the world, you are paid back in so many ways. And monetarily, that might be one way, but you're paid back in your health.
Absolutely.
When you're doing that.
100%. It reminds me of a really, really good book by a guy called Bob Berg called The Go-Giver, which I am recommending to everyone at the moment.
Okay.
It's one that I only just got around to reading, and funnily enough, it was given to me as a gift by someone. So it was beautiful, really.
Yeah.
But the premise of the book is that the people who are highly successful and achieve great things in any industry are the people who give the most value to others. It's not about going out there and getting all the money, or going out there and getting all the fame, or getting out there and getting all the success. It's about giving so much of yourself and being so valuable that the success and the money and these things become inevitable.
Yes.
Because you're helping and serving so many people. If you helped 1 million people and asked them all to give you $1, you'd be a millionaire, minus taxes, of course. But you'd be...
That's 33% in Canada.
In this mind exercise, let's just ignore the government for a second. But think how simple that is. People think becoming a millionaire actually is extremely difficult. But really, you just have to help 1 million people, $1 worth. Like, that's not that much. If you say to someone, I'll carry your bags up the stairs, give me $1. They'll give you $1, you carry their bags up the stairs. It's not that tricky. The trick is to try and find 1 million people and then try and serve them in a way that is useful to them.
Well, the internet helps with that.
The internet absolutely helps with that. But the secret to all of this is giving. It's giving of yourself, it's giving of your time, it's giving of your
talents.
everything, your talents. Not hiding them under a bushel, as the Catholics would say.
And especially with mental health being so at the forefront right now, I feel like for those who are really battling depression and anxiety and those things that often and that I've dealt with those things as well, and they often make us feel like we want to draw into ourselves and hide and separate ourselves from the world. And although it's counterintuitive when we're in those states, if you listener are in that state of depression and isolation, the best thing you can do for yourself is go out and help somebody else. And you might think, what? I'm the one that needs help. But you'll get the help by helping somebody else.
So true. And it actually, it's another story that I write in my book. Just after I had 2 suicide attempts, my only 2, it was the absolute pits, the absolute bottom of the barrel. My dad came to me and he said, there's a position for someone who can produce radio shows at the prison that I work at. There's a small position. And I sort of said, well, why the hell would I do that?
Right.
Like, I've just tried to kill myself twice. Like, there is nothing in my life that's going to put a smile on my face. And after a few sort of pushes, it took me to the 3rd time where he said, just come and do this. And in my mind, I sort of said, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. Like, I've hit so low now. This honestly can't be worse than where I am. And I went, and honestly, the giving of my time, the producing of these radio shows did not give me an immediate sense of satisfaction. It did not give me an immediate sense of joy. But I learned one really big lesson in that I turned up at that prison and I was more miserable than the prisoners. And they were kind of like, cheer up, mate. What's going on? Like, what is wrong with you? You get to walk out of here, we don't. And some of them were there for life. Like, you get to walk out of there, and we don't. We do not get to walk out of here. Like, you have no reason to have that miserable face on. We don't really care what your story is. At least you can walk out of here, and that's something you should be more grateful of. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this idea of giving. I was suicidal on my bed, having failed at killing myself, which is like just right at the bottom of the barrel. And I went and I just gave my time, not to get anything in return. And actually, I didn't get anything in return till after I left, when I realized that I had a lot to be grateful of that I simply wasn't grateful of. And that's when I went to work with autistic children. And it was the same learning experience.
Yeah.
And the beauty of this is that it all starts with giving.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that story. Let's talk a little bit about habits.
Yes.
We talked about how we both love that word daily, which is inscribed on one of my necklaces that I wear every day. Daily habits, how they add up to who you are.
Absolutely. Well, if your thoughts manifest your life, if what you believe you create, then absolutely every single second of your life you are painting the beautiful masterpiece of your destiny. So your daily habits are absolutely necessary. It's actually the things that you're doing daily that will define who you are in 20 years time. It's really simple. It's something covered really well in a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. Yeah. Like, I really enjoy that book. But the premise enclosed in those pages, that is something that I talk about a lot, is if you choose to do one small thing well every single day, compounded over time, much like an investment into your financial savings account, it will compound over time. It will create this magical amount of money that didn't exist before. It's the same thing with your health. It's the same thing with your mental health. It's the same thing with your social circles. And it works both ways. The small daily habits that you have, that you think, you know what, this bit of candy that I have every day really isn't going to make a difference. And then you wake up 20 years later with a belly around your waist.
Yeah.
It's fundamental that we take control of our daily habits. Almost always when we talk about daily habits, people talk about habits to do with food or exercise or jobs or things. What's also even probably more important that people don't talk about is the habits of the mind.
Yes.
The daily habits of the mind, training and taking the time to invest in retelling the stories that are going on in your head. Unless you can believe that you can change, you won't change. Unless that you believe that you will lose weight, you won't lose weight. Unless you believe these things, they won't happen. So taking the time daily to train your mind, to start letting it work for you as opposed to against you, fundamentally important.
Yeah, if there were two words I could take out of the English language, at least not using them together, it would be I can't.
Yes.
And I hear this a lot. I'm gonna name it. I hear it a lot from people with multiple sclerosis.
Right.
I can't exercise.
Okay.
I can't. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of things. Listener, just think for yourself. What are the things that you often say on a daily basis that you can't do? And there is a real impact in that belief on your reality. If you wake up every morning and tell yourself, I can't exercise, I can't exercise, I can't exercise, you're not going to.
Well, you're manifesting a life where further down the line, you won't be able to.
People don't realize that exercise, for example, can be something as simple as, while you're sitting in your chair, clenching your butt cheeks.
It's good exercise.
It's really good exercise for balance and stability for people with MS, right? Like, you're watching TV, sit there and clench your butt cheeks for 30 seconds at a time for the whole episode. Let me tell you, that is a workout. I've been doing it this whole time. As I walk away from this table, you're going to be like, wow, look at that. I do it in my car. When I'm driving in my car and I'm bored in traffic, I sit there and I go, push down the heels, lift up the toes, clench the butt cheeks.
That's part of
lift
the process.
in the abdomen, and it's just sort of like, this is where I fit in my workout, right? And that's
Completely.
where daily habits come in, because I don't go to the gym, quote
Right,
unquote.
right.
But I
You
do
don't have to
fit
unless you enjoy
fitness
it.
into my
Of
day.
course. And it's interesting that I can't is something I can't speak. I'm just about to say it myself. This is true though.
Yeah.
I can't speak to people with multiple sclerosis,
Right.
but I can speak to myself and the people that I coach. And I think that it's true. Possibly the most toxic words that exist are I can't. Does that mean that I never say I can't? No. I actually say it more than I wish I did. I say
Yes.
it more than none, so I say it more than I wish
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
And I have great examples. Even in the last 2 weeks, I went for choreography practice for my upcoming music video, and the choreographer was trying to get me to move intuitively, and I kept saying, I can't. I can't. He had to take me through a meditative exercise where I broke down crying to come to a point where I said, I'm just going to do this. It's not
Right.
that I can't, it's that I'm just going to do it to prove to myself that I can,
Right.
regardless of how good it is.
Right, and I'm not saying that people should automatically change I can't to I can, but even just changing the vocabulary, the semantics to I'm having difficulty doing this right now, or I'm not ready to do this.
It's
Right?
interesting.
It changes.
It's interesting because the semantics of vocabulary is something that I've looked at a lot. So, I can't. What's better than I can't? I can't. I say is superseded by I want. So you say I can't change. What's better than that? I want to change. That's good. What's better than I want to change is I will change.
Yes, and even better,
Is I am change.
I am changing.
So
I
it's
choose to change. High five.
there we go.
Present tense.
That's you told me I can't do hand movements because
Right,
we're doing
but-
radio,
But you see how I said high five? So
I
we can
see,
picture it?
I see. That's very clever.
Okay, on that high five, I feel like we could talk for hours, but we are coming to the end of our show. So I want to thank you so much, Frankie, for coming on and talking
pleasure.
with us today. So if you'd like to see some more of what Frankie does, you can check him out on YouTube. If you search for Frankie Cote Coaching, that's Frankie, Frankie, and Cote, Cote.
Absolutely correct.
And if you're interested in learning more about myself, Rebecca Naylor, and what I do as a health coach, you can check out my website at chronicallywell.club. From that website, you can find Chronically Well Club on Instagram, on Facebook, and my YouTube channel where I do my video blogs. And there's also information on my website and links to my Vox Life site where you can get access to the wearable neurotechnology that I promote for all of my clients, as well as information about the essential oils classes that I teach and the doTERRA essential oils that I highly recommend for persons with MS. If you have any questions, I would really, really appreciate hearing from you. I love to get feedback from my listeners. So please feel free to contact me by email at rebecca@chronicallywell.club. Any final words, Frankie?
It's been an absolute delight to be here. Any final words? This is always something that I imagine when I'm at the end of a movie and someone has a gun to my head.
No.
What are your final
No
words?
pressure,
My
no pressure.
final words are as simple as this. Every single person listening has an infinite potential. Every single person on this planet has an infinite potential. It is our duty to understand what that is and share it with the world.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Frankie. To my listeners, create an amazing day for yourselves, everyone, and be well.